All right, let's hop right in. So this is the secret KPI. What is a KPI? Right? Let's go with this. What is a KPI? Right, it's a key performance indicator. Y'all know my spelling right there was disgusting. My bad. So it's a key performance indicator. Now, why is this important? Let's go to Google. What is a KPI for business, and why is it important? Y'all know me. Go here. Let's see what it says. A KPI is a key performance indicator. It's a quantifiable, measurable value that tracks how effectively your organization or team is progressing towards its most important business objectives. Now, as a life insurance agent, one of our most important business objectives is what? Making sales. So, how do we find and how do we identify what is the most important one and what is the secret, right? The secret KPI is literally going to be your cost per presentation. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, this means that, right, we're going to call it cost per presentation. Now, in other businesses, they call it this cost per qualified showed appointment, right? Some people call it CSA, right? Some people call it cost per CPQA, right? Cost per qualified appointment, basically, right? Or cost per qualified showed appointment, or cost per showed appointment, or whatever. We call it in life insurance the cost per presentation. Now, why is this the secret KPI? Why is this not? Why is it not CPL? Right? So it's like, why is it not these others? All right. So we're talking about CPL, cost per booked appointment. Why is it not even cost to acquire a client? Right? Because the cost to acquire a client can change, but the thing is, the cost per qualified showed appointment is a metric that leads to the cost to acquire a client. It is the only denominator, right, that you can track, that you can say, I'm getting this many booked appointments. I just need to get better at X, right? And I need to get better at Y. Okay, so X would be I need to get lower cost per lead. I need to get lower cost per booking, right? Or per contact. But then the cost per presentation, dude, if you can figure that out, the numbers are going to be the numbers on both sides of the spectrum, right? Because you can have a great cost per lead, like you could have a really good cost per lead, but if the other metrics don't make sense, it doesn't matter. You could even have you really, and I know people probably get a little flack here. The cost per presentation, I like looking at more than the cost to acquire a client, because if you fixate on the cost to acquire a client, it doesn't give you. There are a lot of things that go into that, because one could say, well, I'm making a lot of sales, so my cost to acquire a client is really good, so I'm doing good. Not necessarily true, right? You could also say that the goal is to get more presentations. The more presentations that you get from how much you pay. So you spend $100. If you can get 10 presentations at $100, then you say, okay, out of those 10 presentations, actual presentations, how many am I closing? If I close 50%, then that's 5. Then it's like, okay, my cost. So you can start looking at that metric and gaining confidence. It's like, dude, so it cost me this much to get a presentation. And if I feel confident knowing that if I get 10 presentations, I'm going to close 5 of them or 4 of them or 3 of them or whatever that number is, you can build on that. The cost to acquire a client is so deceiving. It's so deceiving because you could switch a lead up, you could switch a funnel up, you could switch it's like you want to focus on how much does it typically cost me to get into a Prezi. If I can figure that out, then I can have a legitimate chance at making a lot of money, because that's just input in, input out. All right. So let's look at these other metrics real quick. Okay. So why is it not cost per lead? Okay. Now here's what I'm saying. Cost per lead is super, what's the word? Deceptive, is what I was trying to say. Now, why is it deceptive? Right? Because you can have low costing leads that are good or bad. You can have high costing leads that are good or bad. Right? You can also have free leads that are good or bad. Genuinely. Now, everybody's free leads. What is a free lead? Okay, a free lead is going to be a referral, right? That's what a free lead is. You close somebody down and then you say, do you have anybody else who might actually be interested in something like this? and then you transition into that, and then you're able to, sell the person. That is a free lead. Okay. The reason why it's deceptive is because one could say, well, I hear this all the time. Agents, I just need lower cost. I want more leads for what I pay. It's like, yeah, that is true, right? But just because you get super cheap leads, like super low costing leads, there's a difference between like a more cost effective lead. For example, you buy from a lead company, it's $50, you generate themselves, it's actually $40 or $35 versus a 50, but that's not, your skill set still has to be good for that. Like even if you're not, because most lead companies aren't marking. I know for me, I don't mark my leads up insane. I don't, because I really try to focus on quality. Some lead companies mark their leads up insane. That's why you're upset, because you're paying so much and the leads suck, right? You're paying $40 for a lead and it's like a $10 lead. Like I can generate leads for $8, but I'll probably sell it for 15, 20. Like I'm not going to sell it for 30 because it's just not that good of a lead. Now, one could say that's a good or bad thing, but I think I've done pretty well for myself over the past 4 years, right? So with that being said, if you're going to buy super low costing leads, like it's like, oh, I get more lead. Not really. Like it's so deceptive. People start with that. I talked to a guy that wrote $45,000 with me alone. He's only 7 months in the business. He's with an agency that does like 2 million. He'd never heard of what cost per book to cost to acquire a client or CPA was. Had no idea. He was like, "Yo, what is that?" I was like, "Bro, that's hilarious." But I'm not mad at you. I didn't know what it was when I was selling. I for sure didn't know what it was. I just found out about that. And then when you start really looking at it, you're like, oh, that makes sense. And when you understand those numbers, you move a little bit differently. But everybody focuses on leads. Like, I just need more leads, better leads, lower costing leads. Like, whoa, slow your roll. It's deceptive. Oh, I'm spending $50 to get a lead. It's got to be great, right? No. Oh, I'm spending $10 to get a lead. It's got to be horrible. Not really, right? It's deceptive. Okay, next thing, cost per booked appointment. This is also deceptive. This is cost per booked appointment. It's also deceptive. You're probably like, what do you mean it's deceptive? Okay, you could book a ton, nobody shows. You could book a ton, nobody is qualified. You could also book a ton. And oh no, my bad. Book a ton, nobody shows. Book a ton, nobody's qualified. That's only two there. I'm sorry. Yeah, these are two things. You could book a ton of appointments and nobody shows. This is probably the most common thing. Oh, I'm gonna fill your calendar. I want booked appointments. I want all. Dude, it's like the idea to say the cost to actually book that person, right? You get 10 leads, you book 3 appointments, or you book 2 appointments, then it's $5 per booked appointment. That does not mean it's $5 per showed appointment. That means $5 per booked appointment. It may take you 4 booked appointments to get somebody to show, which means now your cost per showed appointment is actually $20, which is what we're talking about today. Cost per presentation. If you're doing one call close, it's theoretically the same thing, because somebody can say you get past the intro, but if you don't go through the prezi, that doesn't necessarily count, right? Cool. And the reason why is you could also book a ton of people and nobody's qualified. There could be people, I could go call a bunch of people to say you want to hop on a call to go through something. If they're not really qualified, they'll still listen to you. Doesn't mean that they're good though. So that's also not a good metric to look at, because while it is important, just like cost per lead is important, it's not the most important and it's not the secret, because if somebody could be like, well, my cost per booked appointment is super low. It's like, okay, well, what's your cost per showed appointment, which goes into like tying down, which we'll like go through those strategies here in a second. And then you have your cost to acquire a client, right? And we already talked through this, right? Cost to acquire a client, right? Now, this is not necessarily deceptive, but it doesn't tell the whole story. So you're probably like, what do you mean? Okay, well, theoretically, right? This can fluctuate based on a few things. All right. Now you're probably like, what do you mean it can fluctuate based on a few things? All right. You could be making a ton of sales, but no, right? Cost or close per sale, CPS. That's what that is. Close per sale, right? Or commission per sale. Right. And what does that mean? That means that when you do make a sale, you're not actually getting a crazy ROI on the back end. So you're making sales, but you're not Like you're closing final expense leads. It's like, all right, yeah, your cost to acquire client is super low, but it's relative to what? Right? So it can fluctuate. It can be super low on a specific lead, and it can also be really high on another lead. That doesn't necessarily, it's not a secret. It's not like, oh my goodness, I can get that super low and I have a better probability. That's not necessarily true. Because you have a lower cost to acquire client on like a really bad lead, it doesn't really matter. It's like final expense might be $100. Annuity might be 1,000. Somebody like, oh no, I do final expense every day. It's like not necessarily. Like, what's the actual ROI? So that metric doesn't, that KPI is not necessarily a secret. It's not the biggest lever to pull. It's really not. It really doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, in that instance, you having a lower cost to acquire a client actually isn't going to change anything relative. It just means that's how much it costs you to make a sale. And while that is, in my opinion, probably the most important, it is not the secret. It is not the secret. The whole idea of this video is the secret KPI, not the most important. Cost to acquire a client is the most important, in my opinion, because at the end of the day, you, how much do you have to spend to get somebody to make money? Point blank period. Like theoretically, that's all that really matters, right? The other thing that it can fluctuate on for the cost to acquire a client is actually the relative clientele that you are serving. And I think that ties in with the commission per sale, but it's also like, what is the time, effort, and the end result you get? Okay, now I relate with this respectfully because of agents, and I also relate with this, like by agents I mean agents that I sell leads to. Okay, I also relate to this from life insurance agents who sell to, middle class America individuals, because what you have to realize is you're spending money to start a relationship with somebody. If you're buying life insurance, if they're buying life insurance from you, you think that you're only selling them one time. When in reality, it's like if you actually want to make money, you got to sell them, keep them on the books for 12 months. So you kind of got to develop a relationship. You're like, oh yeah, I just made a sale, go on with their life. That's how you get a lot of chargebacks. That's how 8 months down the line, you're like, oh my goodness, dude, I'm cooked. And that's what I learned even as an agent myself. I'm like, okay, I actually gotta help these people, put these people in the right position. I gotta treat this like a business. I gotta actually like follow up these people. Probably their payment might lapse. Like I need to like stay on it. So why is that important? It's like, once again, you could have a super low cost to acquire a client and just be closing deals, telling people anything to get people through the door, and then potentially have chargebacks on the back end. So it's not necessarily given. It's the most important, but it's not the secret, right? And that is why, because you don't understand the demographic. And it's just like you could spend more and get somebody you never have to talk to. Is that worth it? Like, yeah. So it's like having the lower doesn't necessarily make a difference. But here's the secret, right? Here's the secret to the cost per qualified load appointment, or cost per presentation. Here's a secret. No matter what, the lower the cost for this, the better your business. It does not matter what life insurance lead type you have. The lower cost that you can get to have a qualified showed appointment or somebody that's actually interested in this, the better for your business. Now, here's what I want to throw a disclaimer out, because I can hear people in the background. Well, Trey, that's contradicting what you just said about something like final expense. What if I just did something like a live transfer? That's not really a secret. That is different, because a live transfer, unless you know exactly what the client saw or know what they're actually opting into, if you're not controlling you did not control the conversation to get there, which is not bad. But if it's being transferred and vetted by somebody else, I mean another human being that's deciding whether or not they're going to transfer you a call, one could say that while that is a presentation, if they're not qualified, it's kind of like a no-show. Like it's not they're not actually the ideal client. So theoretically, what's the closest thing to the cost per qualified booked appointment and the cost per presentation? It is the cost per booked appointment. That's what it is. That's the closest. The difference is the qualified booked appointment that shows. So here's what I mean by that, okay? When you book an appointment, because I believe that booking appointments or getting into presentations is the secret. Because think about it. If I can get 100 leads and get 10 people to get into conversations with me, right? Just get into the conversation. Be willing to sit down with me. I increase, and if I can now go from 10 to 15 and nothing else changes, I 100% am going to make more money. No questions asked, which means that if I went from 10 to 15 out of that 100 leads, which I spent $100 on, which whatever, I have now taken my cost per qualos to be lower. Now, one could say I just booking more appointments. That's not necessarily true. You could book 20 appointments, but if only 4 people show, and I book 6 and 4 people show, it doesn't really matter if you book the other 14 because they weren't actually qualified. It was a waste of your time. Now, how do you do that? A lot of people are like, well, you just went through this whole thing. How do you actually do that? Here's how you do it. Keep it super simple. If you are doing a one call close, you do a one call close. Let's just start there. You go for the kill. Because the likelihood, if somebody's like, well, call me back, that you pick up the phone. I don't even know what it is. Don't know the numbers. But I'm telling you, it's not good. It's not relatively good. Yeah, call me back at 3. Dude, you'd rather just shoot your shot now. Hey, this is only going to take a few minutes. We can just go ahead and knock this out. Now, don't force that. If it's a qualified person, and this is where experience comes in, you have to understand and know. Take this from your uplines. Don't take it from me because I'm not going to tell you when to do it. But I can tell you there's a time and place where you can learn who's actually going to come back and show, who's going to be considered a qualified appointment, and who's just kicking rocks. You don't want to waste your time with somebody that's going to kick rocks, that's saying, oh, yeah, call me back. And you can hear in their tonality, they're not going to do it. But that takes time. You have to understand and learn clients in order for you to get to that point. You're not just going to hop out and be this dog and be like, yo, blah, 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 blah. It's like, dude, at the end of the day, that's going to take time. Point blank period. So if that's going to take time, and you know at the end of the day that you have to actually get people to show up, there are a few things you need to do. Number one, you need to focus on what's called a tie down. I'm not going to write, like, you can go through a lot of this. You have to focus on tie downs if you're going to book appointments. That means getting the person to verify they're going to show, verify that nobody else is going to be there. Make sure that it is a qualified appointment that is actually going to show. If it's not a qualified appointment that's going to show, then it's like, it doesn't matter. Once again, you're just booking appointments. I've spent time doing that myself. You're wasting your time. There's no point in you doing it. The second thing is not only tie downs, but it's going to be confirmations. It's for booked appointments. A lot of people are like, well, I have an automated drip sequence. They're still not showing. Well, duh, because it's coming from a green message. And people get hit with text all the time. Look at my phone, and I can literally tell you, like, I just get hit with text messages like, yo, I want to do this. Yo, I want to do this. Yo, I want to try this. Yo, have you ever thought about this? Yo, this is a random phone call. It's like, bro, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if your automated text messages are sending out and nobody's showing. It's because your automated text messages are sending out and nobody's showing, because nobody shows to automated text messages anymore. You need to personalize it. People know what it is. Like, dude, I call agents, and the amount of agents that have that blocker thing on their phone, it blows my mind. It absolutely blows my mind. I'm like, dude, oh my goodness, bro. I don't even have that thing on my phone. I hope I don't. I really hope I don't. If I do, I'm sorry for anybody that's tried to call me. But like, every phone now just comes with that. They're like trying to stop. It's like, dude. So getting in contact with people is even harder. So now you got to FaceTime audio. You got to send text. You got to do so many other things. If you're not willing to do those things, you are going to get left behind. You are going to have less showed appointments. It just is what it is. The text messages, people forget. They got a million things going on, kids, life. It's like, dude, especially with this, like, you have to understand, yes, they filled it out. Yes, they're hiring talent. But at the end of the day, it is your responsibility to get them to show up on the call. Like, they are not responsible for showing up naturally. Because think about this. If they were responsible for showing up naturally, then they would do one of two things. They probably would have never filled an ad out online. They would have just been like, I'm gonna look this up. How do I get and would have just been like, okay, like maybe I'll fill it out. Those are probably the people that fill out the form and just show up in their laydowns, because they probably have seen and looked up stuff, and then they saw it and they're like, dude, I'm gonna fill this out. Somebody just hooked me up. Like, I'm good. Most other people will probably be like, how do I get a life insurance policy, right? And then they'll slide to Google, and then maybe they'll fill out the form, and it's like, yeah. But a lot of times it's not like you gotta work. Like, you book the appointment, you gotta get them to show. Bro, life insurance agents don't show. So like, if you think in your mind that people are just gonna show up out of nowhere to your appointments and you're mad because they don't, it is a you problem. Like, you need to be better. I don't care what anybody says. Nobody can convince me that people showing up to appointments is because of the leads. dude, if the leads were better, bro, they just show up. Come on, bro. That isn't. If the leads were better, they just answer. Come on, bro. What are we saying? The only thing that determines whether or not a lead is good is when the person picks up the phone, do they know what it is that you were talking about? If they do, the lead is good. The lead person's job is done. There's nothing, it's done. Whether the person is none of that matters. They can't control that. Bro, the amount of people that fill out forms and you're like, well, I need them to fill this out and put this in. It's like, bro, that doesn't matter. Like, oh yeah, they put this. None of that matters. If they put that they can make, $200, they make anywhere between $300 to $500,000 a year. That if they make that or they don't make that, that doesn't really matter. People lie. Yeah, they're just filling out the form. I make $100. I'm not putting all of my money on here. Like if I was filling out a form, you think I'm gonna put I make $1 million? Like, dude, I'll put what I pay myself W-2, which is garbage, nothing intentionally. You know what I mean? It's like, dog, I don't need to pay myself anything crazy. Like I'm cool with being on a little salary. Fine. I live a very modest lifestyle. A lot of people with a lot of bread, they do the same thing. They're just kind of chilling. They're like, good. If they're filling out a form, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, bro, I make $3 million. It's not a credit application. Why am I explaining that? Because you need to understand the demographic of the people that you're actually tying down and getting to confirm. Right? These are the only two things you do. Time down, get them to confirm. Time down, get them confirmed. Otherwise, you're gonna do a one-call close. Now, what happens when you do this is you're gonna build a lot of authority, a lot of rapport. They're gonna trust you more, and you have a higher likelihood of actually being able to convert that person into a sale. That's what it looks like. If you do not do those things, you have a very low probability of it actually turning into something. So I hope this video helped. I hope this video was insightful because the goal is to get more presentations. You will never, ever, 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 ever go wrong with getting a lower cost per qualified showed appointment. You will never go wrong. You can go wrong with booking a bunch of appointments that are a lot cheaper. You can, because you can just get anybody. But to get a qualified showed appointment, you will never go wrong by doing that. Once again, here's the analogy. You have 10 leads. I book 8 appointments, 2 show. You got 10 leads. I book 5 appointments, 4 show. What is more effective? Having a lower cost per booked appointment or having a lower cost per showed appointment? Because in the first analogy, it cost me what? My math is horrible, bro. $5? $5 for a showed appointment. But I booked 8. The other one, it is $2.50 per showed appointment. Well, you booked 5 and got 4 to show, and I booked 8 and got 2 to show. It's like, yeah, dude, because that's only meant. And it's the blend between skill and booking appointments. So it is a controllable thing. Obviously, you got to get good at booking appointments, but to get people to show, it requires skill. To get into one call closes and being able to actually get them to a presentation, it requires skill. It's so easy for somebody to be like, yeah, I'll just call you back, and then you put that as a booked appointment. It's like, brother, what does that even mean? You know what I mean? It's like, or it's so easy for you to be like, yeah, dude, I'll just sell this to you for $20 and just lie to them to get your cost. It's like there's no way you can outperform having a lower cost per qualified appointment. There's no way. There is no way. There's no way. Because if you keep decreasing that, eventually over the timeline of whatever, you will do better than the person that even closes higher than you. You will, because you'll have more opportunities. So they close at 60%, you close at 50%, but you get 5 more people, dude, you're gonna close 3 more deals than them. Duh. It doesn't really matter. It's not rocket science, but most people complicate it. So I hope that video helped. Outside of that, I will see you guys tomorrow. We'll be back with another banger, and y'all have a great day. Bless.